My name's Sarah Adcock. You've seen me before standing right here. I'm back a little sooner about this sort of stuff than I would like to be. It's twice in less than 12 months, isn't it? But here we are. So we're here obviously because we've got quite a number of very large fires that are of pretty serious concern. We've got fire out here that's over 10,000 hectares, and to put it in a bit of perspective, it's already half the size of the fire from last January. And that's without the really serious big weather events that we had that drove that fire. So we're in a pretty serious situation, and we're not going to back away from that. We're going to be quite upfront with you that it's a situation that is of concern, and that's why we're here, obviously. To help us out, we've got Scott Cummings from DELP, from the Now depot, is here to talk about the situation on the fire ground and operational issues. Michelle's going to help out with a bit of stuff up front as well. Shane Turner from the council, and big thanks to the CFA Brigade and Linton for hosting us up here, and Linton's here to answer any questions around the CFA side of things as well. Without further ado, we'll kick off. I'm going to get Michelle to just ask you a few questions up front, and then we'll launch into Scott to tell you about what's going on the fire ground.
Thanks, Sarah. So we just wanted to do I suppose a quick exercise with everybody, just so that we had a good idea of how things were going in the community. And the first question we wanted to ask was, how do you usually get your emergency information? So what is the main source of your information that you're all receiving? So I think that an easier way to do this is if Sarah is the scribe, and if we just get people to just yell out or say the Vic Fire app.
Right answer.
I find that just doesn't want to be up with big fires when they're happening. I got most of my information about this fire by bumping into Scotty at the roadhouse.
All right. Scotty at the roadhouse.
I chased Scotty at the roadhouse whenever we got a big fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, right. Other people?
Is that the phone app?
Yeah, it is.
Well, I get it on the computer just to
The website? Yep, Vic Emergency website. Excellent.
Also, I noticed the other day that was fairly behind.
Right. Behind to the app?
I mean, I live at W Tree, so right in the middle of everything that's happening, and you know, what was on the site didn't really match what I was seeing, sort of thing.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Could be partly because we were covering this late before they were not actually
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
where the boundaries and edges were.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
Radio.
Radio? Very good.
Yes, we do. Yes, we've just recently.
Phone tree, so the W tree phone tree. Yeah.
And we asked everybody if they still wanted to be on it, and quite a few people said no. And so now it's about half the size, which is great, because 10 months ago it just didn't work, you know, just overwhelming.
And everyone who's on it now wants to be on it.
Yes, so they specifically asked to be on it, yes, yeah.
Okay. Any other sort of local source of information? ABC? Yep.
Is it the radio, ABC radio?
Yep, ABC radio.
Nigel Hodge is pretty handy. When there's a fire to leave, he's got a good view.
Got a good view. Nigel Hodge has a good view.
Well,
Yeah.
2012,
Right.
more about what was going on over snow than anyone else I could access. So watch it for a couple of weeks anyway.
Long enough to know just where the smoke's coming up from.
So is your community and your neighbours one of the sources then?
Yep.
We quite often, if I, want first-hand information, it will either be with Scott or one of the fellows up at Gelantipy here, either Keith, generally Keith, or, if I couldn't get Keith, I'd be chasing Paul or Winston or somebody like that, for more information on what the fire's actually doing than what you can see on the internet.
Absolutely. UHF, yep, right.
Generally, I've found over the last few days when things have changed really rapidly that the best source of information was just looking, just watching, keeping watch. And, you know, and I was fairly happy that a few times I was concerned, particularly the other night, but yesterday I wasn't, you know, and even though some others were concerned, it just was different. And the wind was blowing the right way, and yeah, so just keeping watch, I reckon, is essential.
Great.
Probably wouldn't want to advertise totally, but right here for the source of information, but not everybody should be reading that way.
Right. Fire tower, yep. Excellent. It's really good to see lots of different sources for getting your information, particularly, I mean, looking out and seeing, you know, noticing changes in wind direction yourself or smoke direction, things like that. It's also really important, particularly if, you know, the app, it's not perfect, the way that we warn people, so it's always good to have multiple sources to get that information. So this is really good for us. Now, the other question we wanted to just ask quickly, oh. Right into the microphone. So, what are your concerns regarding the current fire situation? We just wanted to get these out up front so we know what they were.
Do you mean how things are right now, or how we got to this situation, or what do you mean?
I suppose right now, but also encapsulating, I mean, I suppose what you make of it. We're sort of looking at issues that you're concerned about at the moment that you'd like some information on. Makes sense?
If anything, what I've learned from this is that the state hasn't got enough resources.
Okay,
The
yep.
other day, well, a few days ago, we had a lightning strike at W3. There was a tiny little fire that had been dealt with really easily. Now it's a massive issue because all the resources were tied up in a major situation elsewhere. That's understandable. What that means to me is there's simply not enough resources. But I think we've got to have sort of strike crews or something that go to new fires and get them out before they become major problems. You know, a few years ago we had the same thing. We had a lightning strike that burned for 2 weeks, and then the bad day came and 250,000 hectares burned. You know, again, it could have easily been put out, but 2 weeks could have been put out.
Sure.
We,
Sorry, go on.
we can talk Scott
Yep.
can talk to exactly that.
Yep, great, yep, awesome.
There's no criticism of anyone around here. I just don't think the state has enough resources available to deal with multiple emergencies
Right,
in multiple situations.
cool. Okay, thanks, Ian. Anyone else have some concerns they'd like us to put up here?
Well, my concern is that it's like a sleeping dragon, and it's really cold, and still the fire is burning. You know, we haven't had quite enough rain, and you know, God help us if it's 42 degrees. You know, if it's this bad when it's sort of 25 degrees.
Right,
You know,
Well, today the maximum is 9. The W2 doesn't want to go 9 all day.
Just with the way things have been going the last handful of years and the severity of what the fires are doing and how regular they are, is there talk of them actually going to change the way they address fire prevention in the cooler months? Like to actually upscale it to try and reduce some of the fuel or something? Because it's only going to get worse. It seems to be getting worse and worse every year.
sure. Yep.
In Queensland and New South, we've got rainforests that have been so wet for generations, or whatever you want to call it, that have burned in the last few years. And working with you and Yellow, we spent 2 houses and become our family. So if the rainforests are drying enough to burn them, the dry sclerophyll forest will obviously it's going to go up at 100% more than what it used to, and that's what we saw Monday. We saw fire come off the creek at 18 degrees, 30 metres above, crowning above the ridges. It was, I think they call it climate change.
Sure.
Anything else?
Yeah, any other issues that we have, concerns that you'd like us to put up here?
I worry about
Sure. So practical concerns about being able to get into town to and further. Yep. 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 That being able to access and get Vic Roads app. Yep. Yep. Often not up to date. Sure.
See our road down here, like Patterson Cutting, cleared either side.
Patterson cutting cleared either side. Sure.
Clear road, like you have on your power lines and that, far back as that, on either side of it.
Yep. Sure.
So we've got at least a bit of access.
So yep, increased clearing.
Patterson's cutting, but all the way down.
Yeah. So
Just put it in.
I know
Yeah.
that won't, but I mean, it's going to kill, someone's going to get killed.
yep. All right. Okay. Any other concerns you'd like us to put up before we sort of move on to the update of the fire?
There was an issue last year with the evacuators.
Yes.
But they seem to have fixed it this year.
Right. Great. That's good to hear. So, yep.
I went yesterday and it was amazing.
Excellent. So, yep, that's really good to hear. So, concerns about relief centres probably managed better this year. Excellent. Okay, well, we might leave that for now, but we'll remain for some time after the meeting. So, if you'd like to put something up then, you're very welcome to. Okay, so we'll just move.
I'm pretty confident that Scott, and between us all, but Scott in particular, can actually talk to a lot of this and answer some of these issues and concerns. Is that all right? What we might do though is if you've got anything left over, that if Scott, myself, Linton, Michelle and Shane don't address anything here, there's time afterwards, a bit of time within this session to raise those questions again, and if you have new questions, if you just hold them till we're done speaking so we can just get through it, and then, yeah, please hit us with it. And if there's anything that's kind of a bit out of scope or doesn't really fit within what we're trying to talk about here, which is the fire situation, primarily the fire here, but also more broadly around the landscape, we can hang around a bit afterwards and have a chat, but we might just leave it till then. Is that okay? Just stay on target. Awesome. Righto, Scotty.
And so this, as we all know, are the last 3 years from December, 3 years ago, how dry it's been. The bush has just been incredibly dry those last 3 years. We all know that, living up here. So we've had challenges there along the way. So on last Thursday, whatever date that was, incredibly hot day, 40 odd degrees, 100k winds. We had all that smoke come down from New South. We thought we got the day pretty well, and about 8 o'clock that night, we got our first call up, and it was a fire, the Eagle Hawk, no, it was the Rainbow Fire up here sort of thing, just north of the last year's Timbarra fire. So we thought, oh yeah, we sent some crews up there. Couldn't light up that night, but we thought, oh well, we'll pick that up tomorrow. So at that stage, then we got 2 fires out on Kenai Range. We went out there, we got one of them that night. We couldn't find the other one that night because there was a shower rain out there. Again, we thought, oh well, we'll chase that one the next morning. Next morning, it was thick, heavy smoke. Towers went up. The towers couldn't really see a lot to start with, but that's when we started getting the calls from locals. First of all, getting calls from local, actually that night as well, sorry, there was a Little Dick Range fire just north of Bruthen, and that went to about 31 hectares that night. A lot of resources then got tied up in that fire that night, so they did a night shift out there. So you start in that cycle that you're losing resources for the following day. So a lot of bandsail crews did overnight in that. So then we'll deplete it just sort of for now crews the following day. And then the following day, like I said, we're getting phone calls. I got some phone calls about some out Patelli's Way, so Wairera. There was one out there in the old Tosteree fire and one out there on the coast in the morass down towards Petman's Beach. Got a call off Alfred about the few up here at Tullacard. Got a call off Paul Sykes about the one on the Glenmore Road. Got a call off when the towers could finally see the one at Eaglehawk. We're driving to the fire at Little Dick Range that day. We're driving towards out there. They saw the 6 Mile fire, so some of them went to that one there. We had some crews that went out to the fire at Patelli's, and unfortunately the reality is that we do sort of prioritise which fires we do go to first when there's that many of them, and unfortunately some of the ones like up Rainbow Track, the Eaglehawk one, the Gelantipy Glenmore one, the ones over on Tullacard were a bit lower down the list. They certainly were priorities, but unfortunately we couldn't get to them all. So for instance, we went to the one at Canai, did a quick ring around that. That was already 3 hectares when we finally got there the next day and the smoke lifted. So we did a quick ring around that one, knocked a bit of stuff back in. We got the other, made sure the other one was still safe out there. And then in the meantime, another one popped up at Harris Creek out just near the Mount Now Tower. So we jumped on that one, squirted some water on that, and we're just under-resourced. So that sort of tied up that first day there. The second day, we went to the Glenmore Road, the Malik and the Tullacard ones. The unfortunate thing was that we're under-resourced with machines as well at that stage. So we had, for your likings, for the one out here, for that next day, we just had the 1 slip-on out there and 2 dozers. No, sorry, the second day we still didn't have dozers on it. We just had the 2 slip-ons out there. And they were just trying to hold it on Snowy Divide Road and on Springs Track, just letting it back out there, and they were trying to squirt water because they couldn't get in behind it. The third day when we did get the machines up there, we started tracking it. The guys kept losing it that day, and they were holding it best they could, but yeah, unfortunately they couldn't. The fourth day when they went up there, it would have been, it was starting to go. So we realised pretty early that morning that we're walking the machines out just to get them out to safety, because that's number one, getting our crews out to safety. Unfortunately, one of the machines in there that was walking out blew a hose, so we had to park that up. And then that after, so we were starting to get a bad feeling that day about 11 o'clock when it was starting to get a bit of a column building. At the same time, we had all these other fires going as well. And as you guys know up here, there still were pretty much limited resources up here. They had been bumped up a fair bit in conjunction with CFA and DELP, but nothing compared to last year. As you know, there was the cast of thousands up here last year, and this year it was sort of just a handful of people. Probably as much as you would know, saw that fire that run that night, wouldn't have seen a fire run like that under southeasterly conditions with the temperature. And I know there's a lot of people that's seen a lot of fire and that, and some of the footage you see, it was just incredible. I do understand that that block is long unburnt, but still the fire behaviour was incredible. And that was an instance with our 6 Mile fire down the bottom, down lower. We had spotting with a southeasterly sea breeze up to 8 kilometres. So again, we had a lot of resources down there. As you know, with the fire up here, we didn't have enough aircraft, unfortunately. And often that's where we can get a lot of intel from as well. So we probably weren't getting as much intel as what we normally would. And unfortunately, that gets back to the resources. Finances keep screaming it up, because I know us guys on the ground at a work centre level are always after more resources. There's a heap of work we can be doing in the off season, just with track maintenance and the likes like that. So that's sort of a rough summary of what happened with the fires over that week. So with the current fire situation out here now, so we still have got to do more work on this western side of the Gelantipy Road. It has been contained. There is still good blacking out works to do out there.
So we'll continue doing that in conjunction with CFA. We'll keep going around an anti-clockwise right way. So around Seaber, we understand, yep, we know there's still a few spots in there. It is contained, but a bit more blacking out required there. When suitable, just bear with me, guys, on the map. When the weather is suitable, we still do intend on doing some backburning. So where the fire edge is at now, we do still intend to backburn down to New Guinea Road, and then we'll burn along New Guinea Road onto what we call Pete's Track. From Pete's Track, then it did slide over on this Pete's Track a bit, but we've tracked that today. So the guys have been out there today, tracking the fire edge out there. We'll then tie that back into Tullacard Road, and we're at this stage prepping up Tullacard Road and the private property fence line to the furthest south and into Jackson's Crossing Track. And when the weather's right, we'll do the same as last year. We'll have the aircraft bombing out the high points, just so we've got that backing fire, so it's still at good low intensity and we're not crowning it. And we'll have crews lighting off the edges. And we'll continue that into Jackson's Crossing Track. And then that will get incorporated with what's on the other side of the Snowy. We'll burn off Varney's over there, Mooncan Track, and we'll try, so it goes Mooncan Track, and they're going to get a spur line from there out to Lightning Track. They're going to go up Lightning Track, and at this stage, they're not exactly sure in their tie-in spot to the north. The trailers up there, that a lot of you know this country up there, it is very accessible, inaccessible, hard work getting it. The fallback isn't up to Tubbut, but that has been mentioned quite strongly at this stage, just because of the train in the country. For us still on our side of the Snowy River, tomorrow our crews are going to go in off Robbie Moon's property, and we're going to go in by foot, and Rayco and Dead Edge into the Snowy River. So that's the plan there, roughly, with that fire, and then we'll keep consolidating this northern line here. Thank Christ the pastures were green, so when it's ran out there, it stopped. Had it been middle of February, it would have been a hell of a different thing. So this fire here, what the graces for down this end of the world, this Gelantipy Butcher's Creek burn, it's been a patchy burn over 2 years, but it certainly has steered it in that direction. So without that burn, that would have impacted a hell of a lot more on Murrindle. So there's a win. And it's a with people go about lack of burning and that. A fair bit of burning does happen out there and in conjunction with fires. I know we could always do more, but it does get back to resources and unfortunately budget. And it's similar with some of these fires over towards Ferntree Creek and that. They've been steered by fires from the Jill Grogan fires. So that's about all I've got with this fire here. Has anyone got any questions about the operations of this fire out there?
Is it heading into the country that was burned in 2012?
So a lot of this country over there, it was 2014 burning over there, Deb. So yeah, it is in there. So that's why they will monitor it a bit to see what sort of runs it does. But I would say it will continue to burn. Anyone got anything else?
Thanks, Scott. He's not going anywhere. There's plenty of time for questions afterwards. So I might hand over to Shane in the Shire.
Thank you. Before I get started, I'd also like to thank those people, those locals that have actually been out trying to put fires out. The DELP staff, the CFA people, they're all all the volunteers with the CFA who have just gone out to a road accident, I think. You know, it's that ongoing stuff that they do all day, every day, or day in, day out. And I reckon they deserve a well-deserved bloody cheer and thank you. My role with the council is to look at doing or establishing relief centres when they're required, and also after a fire's been through to come back in, work with the community and see what they need rather to get back on their feet, go to the individual houses and see what impacts have been. If anyone's had any fences lost or fences damaged, by all means come and see me after we finish. I've got a couple of people I've got to see down the road, I know that. I think one of the overwhelming things that we've got to think about, and I know that the resources and the resources and the resources and the resources aren't there, but many of these people, even the DELP people, have been away, some of them overseas this winter, and a lot of them have already been up to Sydney and to Queensland fighting fires. When Scott was talking about the Little Dick Range fire, that was probably a kilometre from my place on that Thursday night. Many of the tankers that actually turned up to that were the second tankers from the brigades, because their main tankers, I think, still are in Sydney fighting those fires, and they were still sending strike teams up that day and the following day. So, yeah, there's a lot of resources that aren't here. I think there'll be a few questions asked down the track as to when they're going to bring those resources back from Sydney. I think we need to sort of, we can see that there are very big resource shortages. I think from being in the Incident Control Centre since last Wednesday, the amazing thing has been that most of these fires, we're not getting big winds. We're only getting winds of 20 knots, 20 kilometres an hour. They're not big winds. These fires are actually being driven by dry fuels. It's what's on the ground that's actually pushing these fires along. They're taking off. When they take off, they're taking off upslope and getting a big head up, and then that's where they're actually going. So it's 100% about the dryness of the land, the dryness of the fuels under trees and things like that. That's what's bringing us unstuck at this time. And there's been lessons learned through DELP, through CFA, that they're seeing things that they've never seen before. So if anyone's lost anything or had anything damaged, by all means come and see me. We've been trialling a different thing this year, where I've been ringing the bush nurse, and the bush nursing centre here has been opening and staying open longer times. If you need to go down the mountain to Buchan, we've been keeping the Buchan Rec Reserve open. Yesterday it turned into a relief centre for several hours, and then it's still open again today. They're leaving that open, so it's just a place to go if you need a bit of respite for smoke or things like that. So the Buchan community's helping out by leaving that open, and we've sort of been coordinating that. So that will continue to happen. If you are going to see family or to go down to Bairnsdale and you're worried about getting through, they're trialling a new thing where they're leaving at the neighbourhood house. They've got a form there that you can actually fill out and just slip under the door if they're not there. They'll email that to me, and then I actually keep a list, put that onto a system, and we can actually see where what's that you're not here, and we can then verify if you need to get back in that we know you live up here and things like that. So that's a new thing we're actually trialling. I think we had 5 people register yesterday on that, so I think that worked quite well. So has anyone got any questions? No? I like that. I'm not going to get killed like at Buchan, at Bruden. So don't bring it up.
All right, so there is plenty of time for questions if anybody has more now for anybody that's here.
I know something about this fire out here, but because that doesn't, the fire out here at Timbarra, what's the latest on that one?
Fern Tree Creek.
Oh, well, it's nearly
Yeah, rightio. So
for coming in the back here for us. That's
Yep. So one saving grace is the Jill Grogan fire over there. There's some good tracks out there to burn off, so hopefully they can get in and burn off Timbarra Bridge. But I'm probably not 100% over there of what's happening. I do know it hasn't crossed the Wilkinson River. But yeah, I'd love to see burn off Timbarra Bridge.
Yeah, I know that. To me, that's our biggest concern.
Yeah.
That fire there.
Yeah.
The last time we got burnt out at 64, that's where it come from. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that.
Yeah, no worries, mate. And actually, Bill, the other good
Question
thing
was
as
just-
well, we've got that whole Timbarra fire in between as well. So there's that Timbarra fire from last year. Yeah, so I'd have to sneak all the way up to Nuniong. Yeah. So you'd like to, yeah.
Is there another question, Deb or Stephanie? Yep.
So with the resources, we did actually say down the track we're putting requests, but it's probably like now that we need, who can we lobby anybody for the resources?
So there's a question around the community lobbying for getting more resources to the fires.
I probably don't know who that gets spoken to there, who you put the flag up for more resources. Like we do it at district level every year, we want more staff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's budgetary, I'd say.
There's,
With this, like I was sort of hitting on before, government talking about putting more money into the pot for additional resources, is that sort of being spoken about? On a national level, not just us?
I don't think anyone here can really answer that question. I'm very happy to try and get back to you on it. But it's above our pay scale.
The fire levy we pay in rates, where does that go?
Fire levy from rates, where does that go, Shane?
Council only has the chore of collecting that from ratepayers, and then that is handed directly onto the state government. So where it goes to from there, I wouldn't have. Yes, it's all we do. All we are is the collectors. Okay.
Can I say with resources, as you know, there's some trucks and vehicles up in New South Wales. Okay, they're supposed to be coming back before Christmas, but we can't hold our breaths. But they've got plans in at the moment to organise slip-ons from down Melbourne as the weather starts to warm up to start heading this way. So they're looking at it, but at the moment they're just watching to see what happens out here in the landscape before they start to do that, because then they're going to take vehicles from towards Melbourne and bring them up here. So they're playing this juggling game. So that's slowly happening in the background. There's a lot of vehicles down Melbourne that are not around.
So one of the other issues we're facing is really to do with the seasonal conditions. Is that this is well, it's until today. It's been spring. This is early. This is the shoulder period. There's really experienced firefighters in my building that I work with. They take leave now to get ready for the fire season. So the whole system is trying to shift. And as Scott said, we're seeing fire behaviour in the middle of the night that we just don't see. And the reason is, it's very simple, and Shane said the same thing. Why is it cold? We've got rain and the fire's still burning. Bairnsdale's about 700 millimetres of rainfall down over the last 3 years. It's like almost a year's worth of rain. It's just that 36 months dryness is the biggest indicator of the season we pretty much feared we would face, and here we are. So we can get 12 mils of rainfall on the 6 Mile fire, which is the fire near Bruthen. Within 24 hours, that rain had gone and the fire was running again. And then only yesterday we had a huge run from the northwest, towards Buchan with burnt, extinguished embers landing in the Buchan area. This situation is so volatile, and as Shane said again, we haven't had big wins. We really haven't. These fires are driven by the dryness of the landscape and the dryness of the fuels. There's no way that we can sugarcoat this or tell you everything's going to be okay. This is at the beginning of December. We have fires in the landscape that we are unlikely to put out. We have to take a defensive strategy, which means that we protect assets and we protect the community, and we deal with it from there. The scale of this is beyond human beings to influence. It's just the reality. That's what we're dealing with. That's right.
California's burnt all through winter. Sweden, Siberia, places where it should be able to snow.
I'll come to you in a minute, Ian. Yeah.
That's it.
So what I'm hoping is that the people who know this stuff, like you guys, are reinforcing it to government and saying things like we're going to have to spend a lot more money, maybe 10 times as much as we do now, because things have changed and, you know, we just haven't got enough. Yeah, well,
So, I mean, I'm going to be really clear about this. There's not much I can do about that. You will not be surprised to hear that. No one in this room can do much about that today. And so getting onto members of parliament and making a fuss, this is a democracy. It's a pretty good one, and that's exactly what it's your civil right to do. But it's not in scope of what we're talking about today. Yeah. Another question?
I just want to know what's happening with that Mount Elizabeth fire.
Yeah, so the Mount Elizabeth fire is a small fire approximately, in fact it's on your brochure there, I think it's 40 odd hectares. It is of concern, not in and of itself so much, but because it could join up with the Ansafe Creek fire. And so it's in really steep, inaccessible country. It's the same old story. It's the same thing with the Timbara fire we had here last time. It's in steep, inaccessible country. We're having trouble tracking around it. And we know that if we get bad weather, it can get away. All right. When it comes to managing fuel, so our chief strategies around managing fuel in the forest is planned burning or fuel reduction burning. And we also do non-burn fuel treatments. You call it whatever you want. It's like putting in clearings or breaks. We do have those scattered around the landscape. Very welcome to hear your ideas on where we should put more. Always up for ideas. We have a capacity of how many we can put in a given year, obviously. And so what we look at is the history of fire starts. And we have actually data on where vehicles go most often to respond to fire. And they're the brakes that we put in first. And so that's what we've been dealing with. And we kind of grade them heavy, medium and light. Simply means what we can get machinery. And if anybody's been up Kenny's Road or Engineers Road, we can now get float dozers right up into what used to be pretty inaccessible country. So it is something we do. And I know that when you live in a particular place and you don't see it where you travel, it may not be all that much comfort, but it's something that we continually work on. When it comes to planned burning, we have a program of planned burning. We implement it. We don't back away with it. The Chief Fire Officer of Forest Fire Management has put that statement out publicly that we will do fuel reduction burning wherever possible. We are constrained by the weather up here. I don't need to tell you, it's too hot and too dry until it's too hot and too wet. It's the same in the low country down south, but we have put in burns, and as Scott said, last year we implemented a burn. Unfortunately, because it was damp, it's only part implemented, but it has been enough to steer that fire away from the Murrindle Road. Somebody asked about access to town. It's one of our strategies for protecting that main access. Rainforest burning, yes, Queensland, it was on the news, we lost rainforests that shouldn't burn. You drove up here and saw wet gullies full of tree ferns that are burnt. Yes, this is unparalleled dryness, deep, deep dryness. We can't rely on wet areas in the landscape to pull up these fires. And you guys know that. That's exactly what happened last year with the Timbara fire here. When it comes to access to town, it really comes back to your sources of information as well. And as Michelle said, and you guys had this, the list I would regard of where to get those sources of information. Is the Vic Emergency app a bit slow at times? Yes. The Vic Emergency app and the website gets its information from the eyes on the ground and in the sky, the helicopters and aeroplanes. They feed that information back to the Incident Control Centre, and it comes straight from there to where I sit and Michelle sits, and then we put out those messages. Is there delays? Sometimes. Aircraft can't see through smoke, for example. If crews don't have eyes on something, they might not be able to really tell us that intelligence of what's really going on. And then you get a bit of clarity and suddenly it's moved a bit, and then we update it. But I can tell you, I can promise you, we update it when something changes. As soon as we hear, there is no inbuilt delay. It doesn't go to Melbourne. It doesn't go to who knows where in some bureaucracy. It's in the Incident Control Centre in Bairnsdale in this case, or in Swifts Creek or in Orbost, and bam, straight out. No, it's not perfect. It's the best system we've ever had in terms of getting that sort of material, those warning messages out, but it is not perfect, which is why you need other sources of information. Having that situational awareness, being able to see what's happening in the landscape around you, sensing that change in the weather, seeing a glow on the horizon get brighter, all those things. The information from your community, the phone tree, your neighbours, your mates, UHF, keeping in touch with each other, that's what keeps communities alive and strengthens them, is those connections. And now is the time that you really need to rely on those as well. And the ABC radio is important as well. Shane has spoken about the relief centre arrangements in Buchan. We've had actually some pretty reasonable feedback on how that went yesterday, and it was open today as well. There is a party on down the hill if you want to mosey on down tonight. Are there any more questions? Any other questions from the floor? All right, I'd really like to extend a warm thanks to Linton and the CFA, who are out again volunteering to do their bit. For Scotty for taking time off the line to come up and talk to us. Shane, Paul, for the guys from Vic Police for coming up and helping us out today. And thanks heaps for coming. Come up and have a chat afterwards. I can give you my phone number if you want to get in contact with me other times.
Say I go to town and then something changes and the road gets closed. Is my licence with my W-tree address on it not enough to get me past roadblock?
If your licence has your address on it, yes, that'll get you through. Keep your rates notice, keep that identification with you. Shane and the council actually have a system to help you out with that.
Yeah, so unlike New South Wales, this is where this confusion comes in. New South Wales, if the police do an evacuation, that means you've got to get out and you stay out. If you've got property on the other side of a roadblock, you've got pecuniary interests in that property, and you must be able to get access to your pecuniary interests. So Victoria Police can't tell you to evacuate. They haven't changed the Act since I was a policeman. So you have a right to get through, but you've got to be able to prove that you've actually got it. So if you're living at one location, there's a roadblock, and you've got property up there where you've got animals, you've actually got to have proof that you've got property up there. So not only have your driver's licence, have your rates notice, because your rates notice has got all your properties, yeah?
I'm here. No, that's right, I'll speak loud enough.
Yeah.
I'm here. My licence says I live 58 Salyard Road, which is just there.
Yeah.
My name is not on any rate notices because I'm not actually a landowner. Land is through the business, which got property there, property out there, that goes on to Campbell's Knob, then property down at Butcher's Ridge.
Well,
So where does that leave me?
even if you've got a copy of the whoever rates
name's not
notice
on
isn't,
it.
yeah, but your rate notice would, why else would you have a rates notice for that property? Yep,
Why
so,
else would my address be on the licence?
Yeah. yep, yep, yes,
Like I'm a manager,
Michelle, behind you.
literally I've got no rate notices, anything like that. No, that's all right. So like for me to get back, my driver's licence address is Bensdale.
yep,
I work up here full time, but if I get pulled up, they will, we've been got through on last year, but
Yeah.
like, there's
Yeah.
a chance that I
Yeah.
can't get through.
yeah.
So, I've got like,
Yeah, I would actually have, you know, some, if you've got the PIC number for that property,
yep.
then they should be able to let you through if you've got the
Do you
rates
think that
notice.
the police would know what a PIC number was?
Yeah, yeah, because they've sort of been trained now. They're getting quicker now also at actually bringing out wristbands to actually be able to issue wristbands at the roadblock. They were about to do this at Bruthen for the fire there the other day, and then they moved the roadblock back closer to the fire. So they have got wristbands. Once you've got that wristband, cherish that with your life, because it means that you get through the roadblock a lot quicker and you just go through.
So
Yeah.
hopefully if I go down tomorrow, I can come back Monday.
Well, I was looking at the road there today. I was thinking it was getting fairly close to being able to be open because the tree crew's already gone back. Yeah. That was only don't take me for gospel on that one.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
You're in a bit of an unknown.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe the Delta should try and get big roads to keep their major arterial roads a bit cleaner for fire. So.
No comment on that one.
But remember, our priorities are firefighter safety, then your safety. If we don't think it's safe for you to go down that road because there's a fire in there or trees are about to come down, we won't let you go through. Because it's your safety. If we find out that you've gone through and the trees come down on your car, that's now we feel that we let you through. That's
Just
why
to
the
get-
police.
Just to talk about that as well, you got that roadblock down here, there's a lot of tourists come down from New South Wales not being aware that there's fires down here. I live on the main road there, you don't see them turn around and drive back that way.
No, you won't.
And
What we'll do is actually turn them, put them through an escort. It's the people who just go past signs,
Yep.
and it ends up coming down when we're dropping trees. And we've had one that came in about 7 feet from getting their car crushed today. And we had one the other day doing 100 Ks and shouldn't have been there in the first place.
yeah, that's what I was sort of,
The thing is,
That's what
we
they should
will,
be like.
if we're dropping trees and that, for big roads, they will stop the traffic and won't let it through for safety reasons. As soon as they can, they'll open the road or let you come through or escort you through. But you've got to be patient.
Are all the roadblocks manned?
No, not all of them.
No, not all the roadblocks are manned. And look, this comes back to one of the things. This is a big situation. It's an emergency situation. It's kind of slow moving, but it's still an emergency. Not everything's perfect. And we really are grateful for the patience of the community who have to live with it here on your doorstep. And you guys know that I go home to Bairnsdale. You guys have been through this calendar year, and here we are again. So again, no sugarcoating it. It isn't perfect. People will go past roadblocks. Roadblocks will not be in place at the right time, the right place. The signage might not be right, and it might not be as responsive as it should be. But I can tell you that we're doing everything we can in amongst this entire complex situation to resolve those issues. So we can take this info, feed it back to the Incident Control Centre, and we'll attempt to deal with it as best we can.
On the road signage thing, I went to Lakes today and the electronic sign appeared to be facing the wrong way to me.
Yeah, we're aware of it and following that up as we speak. Any other questions, and then we'll... You all right? All right, well, we'll hang around, pack up, have a chat if you like. We'll draw the meeting to a close there, I think. Thanks again, everybody, for taking your time out to come up. Best of luck, and you'll be seeing us. We'll be around doing occasional door knocking through here. As we move forward, you probably expect perhaps more meetings. We'll let you know if that occurs. There is a meeting in Buchan tomorrow afternoon as well. Thanks heaps. Cheers.